Chase? Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, he wanted to bring you in for a chat.
Okay.
Lunch or something, so I think he hasn't had a chance.
Okay. Yeah. A lot going on. Okay.
So,
Okay.
but
Okay.
all right, for those on the broadcast, we'll get started in just a few minutes. If there's anyone on. I know what I forgot.
Oh, I hate this.
Anybody need the rules? I know.
We're always hiring networks, we're always hiring developers,
Apparently you can hear the chit chat that we're having here on the hangout. We'll start here in just a second.
Yeah, this is the good version. This has the right date. Prizes, who's here that I need to give a card to? Brad. Sean Simmons is not come.
We post all of our state jobs to
Okay. All right, well, thank you all for coming out today. So today we mentioned that we're going to re-announce the rules, talk about just portions of those, but really we want today to be something that gives us all a little bit more traction. Okay? So I'd like to talk a little bit about motivations, about why we're doing this, and about how each of us can be successful, and then some of the really cool things that are already set up that are going to happen. But before I do that, Pat, do you want to cover cards and other things along those lines?
Yeah, so cards this week, I still want one to Sean. If you're listening or if you're out there somewhere, you need to actually show up so I can give it to you. Otherwise, I'm just going to give it to somebody else. But I also owe one to Brad right here. He has already taken on setting up a team and everything else, so I'm giving one to everybody. Movies, iTunes, everyone.
And more than just setting up a team, he's actually created a site. He actually has a Trello board and all sorts of things. He's provided ideas. So very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's the only one I have for this week right now. Other updates, the data sets are going in quickly. We'll talk about the resources and stuff like that, but the cluster is actually moving forward, so there's a lot of good news there. But yeah, we'll get into it more deeper here as we keep going on.
Okay.
We can chat about it. So go ahead and get going, and I'll grab a water.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, today I don't necessarily want to go over everything that we had talked about already, but those are recorded on both Wednesday during lunch and Thursday during lunch meetings. The Wednesday evening meeting had no volume, no noise, no sound whatsoever. So don't watch that. So air quality. So again, we are the Big Data Utah Users Group. We're the Utah Hadoop Users Group, the Utah Geek Events Group. There are a lot of different people involved, total of 3,000 people on a mailing list. We have 230 members on the meetup now. We've got a lot of people that are looking at what it is that we're trying to accomplish in our technology group. but there's also a lot of people across the state that are paying attention to what we're doing as well, right? So what are our goals? As a community, our goals, and Pat and I and others have worked on these, but feel free to help us throughout time to make these grow. But our goals are to, one, build the big data community. We want to eventually have Utah be a technology hub, a big data hub for the world. Right? The second goal is air quality specifically. We want to focus on air quality because it affects all of our lives, and we want to do something about it. Today, hopefully, we can talk a little bit about those somethings and maybe brainstorm together as a community a little bit about what some of the actual factors are or things that we can focus on. So, what should we focus on, right? First and most important thing is that we need to make a difference. Regardless of what that particular difference is, it may be for an individual, it may be for a community, you may actually save a life. You may actually do something that is incredibly impactful for an entire society. You may create something that's repeatable, that can be used around the world. You may make a difference just in your own career by doing something incredible that gets you recognition and helps you move forward and helps you learn more about these technologies. We've tried to set this up so that everyone has the chance to do what they really enjoy and what really motivates them and what they have time for, so that they can accomplish something great and amazing with whatever that is that they're able to do. Right? So this morning I was looking up motivations. I've had several people, including somebody last night, bring up that it's kind of difficult to be motivated, or it's kind of difficult to find the time to do this, or it's kind of hard to take your motivation and determine where you should put that focus, where you don't necessarily know it's defined, you don't know what team you should be on. I mean, there's a lot of potential issues that can keep you from accomplishing something great here, right? So let's think for just a second. When I first started this conversations about the air quality competition, I talked a little bit about Steve Jobs, right? And I mentioned that Steve Jobs, yes, he was brilliant. Yes, he did some really amazing things. Yes, he had a lot of focus to attention, and he really pushed really hard on things. And some people called him maybe way too strict, right? But for all his idiosyncrasies, for all of his potential flaws and strengths, in the long run, what helped Steve Jobs be successful was his vision and his passion behind that vision. And he stuck to that no matter what. He never made an excuse. He never decided that something was more important. You know, Steve Jobs didn't get wrapped up in a TV show or in whatever else and just stop doing what it was he was doing. He continued to push all the way up until he had suffered from cancer for years and years, until the last second that he possibly could. Because he had this vision for something that could change the world. Now, what he changed was the way that we think about the personal computer and about how we use computers in our lives. And that's huge. Obviously, it's changed the entire world, right? But what we're talking about here is something that's actually causing people to die on a fairly regular basis, on something that's keeping people from reaching their potential or certain goals that they have in their lives, right? We have no idea how many great athletes we've lost to bad air, but it could actually be a really large number. Right? We have no idea how many great minds never even had a chance to live here on this earth because they died in the womb because of air quality. Right? So maybe something along those lines will motivate you. Maybe making a social change or an impact will be the thing that motivates you. But maybe that's not something that you can get yourself to be motivated by. Maybe instead it's incentives. So we have prizes, and we're going to have really cool awards, and we're going to get a lot of recognition from the state and from many other people, potentially around the world, most likely around the country. Right? Incentives will have a variety of prizes. You know, we have hundreds, even thousands of dollars of prizes that we'll at least be able to give out to teams, if not even individuals, will be getting some pretty significant prizes. Right? Maybe you're motivated by something else entirely. You know, maybe you're motivated by fear. To be honest, I don't like the idea of being motivated by fear, but I personally really fear failure. And I think a lot of people, probably most of the population, fear failing. It tends to be a motivating factor for a lot of the things we do, including the ways we dress or how we and when we wake up in the morning. Now, I don't want you to be motivated by fear, but I do want us to succeed here. And I want us all to accomplish something great. Right? So maybe that's not it for you, though, in particular. Maybe instead you really enjoy being motivated by power. You like to have others do things, or like to be able to get your way, or like to be able to make a big difference in a lot of people's lives and do something that's pretty impactful that in turn helps you be more successful with whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. I think we've actually looked at all of the different types of motivation, and we've found a way to help each one of you achieve those and to be successful. And to be able to take whatever it is that is your current roadblock, or might be your roadblock along the way, and to be able to motivate yourself to push past that. And to say, I don't have enough time, but if I could spend 30 minutes here and 30 minutes there, I can truly accomplish something great. I don't have the right team. Maybe I'll overcome some of my personal fears and talk to people and start building a team. Maybe, whatever it is, in the long run, we want you to be successful. And that success is not going to be temporary. We're going to take this and we're going to push it out well into the future with different organizations, with many different companies. It's going to be amazing. It will be far better than I think any of us can imagine right now. There are a few that might have a little bit better idea than others, but I think that if we really pay attention to what's possible, we can start seeing what benefits might start coming from that. Dave, would now be a good time? Do you have a second to talk a little bit about the state? Introduce yourself and tell us what's going on behind the scenes, maybe.
Behind the scenes,
or whatever.
hopefully we'll get more open about it. We're trying to open up government. So I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the state of Utah State Legislature. And big data is important for us, but we're also doing a lot with open data, which is hopefully will contribute to those of you that are involved with big data in the future by providing more data that you can utilize. There's an open data movement that's going really global right now, and Utah's been part of that. We have an existing site at data.utah.gov where we've posted it. I mean, we only have about 60 or 70 data sets there right now, and some of them are fairly small. But we're in the process. This last year, a bill passed. It was sponsored by Senator Henderson, who is a big proponent of open data. And the state, of course, has thousands of data sets on just about everything you can imagine. I mean, we're providing some of the data for this competition, air quality, transportation data, health data, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But some of our data sets have millions of data items. Some are just small, and but they have all kinds of different uses. So we're going to make more and more data available through data.utah.gov for a multitude of purposes. One is so that people can use it for analytics. Another, is so that they can develop mobile applications. There are people that have already developed mobile applications using our data, and if you sell a mobile application that you've developed, 10,000 copies of it, and you sell it at $1 a piece, you just made $10,000. So there are lots of ways to utilize state data, and like I mentioned, there's some people that have already developed mobile applications and used it in their analysis, and we interact a lot with the universities, with higher education, public education, and hopefully we'll see more data scientists come out of this as well, as people begin to see how really powerful data can be. I was just talking to the governor's office this morning before I came over here to try to help them understand, and we have a couple people in the governor's office of management and budget that are really interested in big data platforms and breaking down some of the barriers we have in the utilization of our data. And we have to be careful because we don't want to expose people's private data. And that's one of the biggest challenges, is how we go about doing that carefully and deliberately, but still release the potential of big data to our economy and to the people who can use it and make good and effective use of it. So we are going to be implementing a new version of data.utah.gov by the end of the year, by December 31st. It'll use some new tools like Socrata. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Socrata. It's an open data tool that lets us host the data and lets anybody run, queries of any kind of query against the data, so that you can pull out specific kinds of data that you're looking for, or let you run, create your own charts and things using state data as well. We hope to release a lot more data than what we've already got. We have a lot of open data available on Utah.gov. That's probably one of my major responsibilities, is the state's portal, Utah.gov, and a lot of people access it. We've had weeks where people have downloaded 700 terabytes in 1 week. So that's quite a bit of data. It's not. I mean, what we're working towards actually is going beyond just data downloads, but providing APIs so that you can access real-time data. And that's really where I think things are heading, and you can develop things and have them closer to real-time, interactions where you combine, economic data from the private sector with data from state government and data from data.gov at the federal government level, and create some really powerful applications or analyses. So that's sort of where we're heading at the state. We've got interest in big data. We're not very good at it yet. That's one of the problems, and that's why we're excited to see the development of this community, and why we're interested in partnering and sharing our data with this community, because we need to develop. That's an area big for economic development in the state, an area we want to stimulate because it's an area for potential growth, and hopefully where there's more and more good jobs available for data scientists. I mean, there already are, right? I mean, we're short on data scientists, but we want to create a center of excellence for that here in the state. So. That's sort of where we're at. We're actually inviting some people and having a variety of meetings to help train people within state government on the power and potential of big data and analytics. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. That's what we're doing in state government. Yeah.
So, to the best of your knowledge, is this mostly Utah taking the lead amongst the other states, or are there other states also following, doing similar things? There's
a number of states that are progressing. I think that there's several states that are probably ahead of us in terms of big data right now. They're not far ahead, but they are ahead of us, and I would say Massachusetts clearly. I mean, they obviously have a head start with MIT and Harvard and everything being right there, and so they are. New Jersey is another one that's really pushing the big data button, and a third is Indiana. They've had some success in actually solving some big issues, such as recidivism. In the corrections community with prisoners, they can use data to track trends and understand what's happening and all the variables that go into the prisoners that end up going through the cycle again. And so they've been able to address some of those, and also infant mortality. That was another area where they've had some success, because they were near the top of the country in infant mortality. And they were able to spot some key factors that caused their infant mortality to be higher than other states, and they're now addressing those factors. So So there's some really big issues that can be addressed if we make effective use of big data. And, yeah.
So on the Utah.gov site, it said most of the data sets are static, right? Download sets.
Right. Most of they're static. We do have some dynamic data sets. That's hopefully going to be one of the big differences with the next version. It's really version 3.0.
Yeah, so that was my question. What's coming out in December? You think we'll have more?
Yeah, we have a state data coordinator now that we just hired this month. He used to be over the long involved with what we call the State Data Alliance. And the State Data Alliance is an alliance of education and workforce services and higher education to look at education data, longitudinal data, which there's some very large data sets looking at what we can do to improve education through data. But let's see, we do have AGRC, which is our Automated Geographic Reference Center. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but that's where we host our GIS data. The site is gis.utah.gov, and we're working closely with them. And we have just hundreds of terabytes of GIS data that are available there, hundreds of layers, of anything that's GIS related. And we've started to produce APIs through AGRC to access data in real time. So if you want to, for example, do real-time geolocations, they've got an API for geolocation service that will do all your street address geolocating. And a variety of other services like that. A lot of them they've posted to GitHub. You're familiar with that. So yeah, we're working in that direction, but we've still got a long ways to go to be where I want us to be.
So follow-up question. I work at BYU, and so we're trying to figure out what data sets to make available to people that consume large registration data and things like that. Mostly for internal, but it's always hard to determine what people are going to want in order to put priority on that. So I'm wondering, in your situation, do you have like a lot of requests, and you're like, oh, this request over here is going to be our first priority, this is our second, or do you have departments that are saying?
Okay, right now I'm working with our state data coordinator to say, okay, there's some other states that already have these Socrata sites, which is an open data structure, and what that enables them to do is track and make public the actual access and number of downloads of all of those data sets. And so we've gone across the country, actually, until we get ours implemented. I've had our data coordinator look across the country and access in about 20 to 30 different thematic areas, identify what the top data sets are. And then we're looking at the data sets that we've already made available and relating that. And then we're going to come up with, between 10 and 30 priority data sets that we are going to try to include in the first release in December of data.utah.gov. It's third release, but the next release. And so that's sort of the process we've been looking at, is trying to make sure that we get out the data that's most useful so that people will really use it. And then we'll continue to feed it. With our contract there, we have unlimited data arrangements, so we can post as much data as we want, as we're able to get there for the next 2 years. And hopefully we'll get lots of people accessing it. And what we're seeing from like Oregon, for example, with their data.oregon.gov, they have, there's some of those data sets that are accessed, 50,000, 60,000 times over, a year or so. So there's obviously a lot of interest from people in those kind of data, and that's what we're correlating. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you very much. Very good. Thank you. So, it's, again, it can be very difficult to understand and to imagine what it is that we're going to accomplish and that has already been accomplished. We really appreciate the efforts of the community. Without you guys, nothing would have happened, right? So I know for Pat and I, at least one of, depending on the situation, our biggest motivating factors tends to be making a change, actually doing something to help people, right? If you look at Pat, he's been helping people for almost a decade now for specifically tech events, geek events, many, many different things, right? And he dedicates time to the point where he doesn't sleep very much, right? Yes, but not nearly as much as he should. So another thing, at least for me, is that I want to achieve something great. You know, we only have so much time here on this earth, and there's only so many things that we can potentially do with that time. Right? By the time that I've made it to some point in my life, I don't know what it is, but I want to achieve something amazing. Something incredible. Maybe something that changes history, or even puts me down in the history books. Okay? Regardless of your particular motivation for change, again, I believe that we have a way to make that valid for you and to do something incredible. Right? So, earlier I mentioned fears as a potential motivation for change, right? We've all heard of fight or flight. Right? When we talk about people's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we talk about that pyramid, and we start at the bottom and we say, look, first we need to survive. We need to have food. We need to feel safe. Then we need to have shelter. Then we need to have social arrangements, and then we need to get to higher levels of thought, and so on, right? But in the long run, each and everything that we do every single day, we have a choice. And we can choose to fear or to fly away from whatever that particular thing is, or we can choose to fight. We can choose to decide what it is that we're going to do on a daily basis. And we can go out and we can say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm shy. I'm not going to do that. I don't know how good I am technically. Whatever it is, we can choose today and every second of this competition. And if nothing else, I would love to see people come out of this competition saying, I've changed the way I approach life. I now choose to do rather than to make an excuse. Look at these people who have created amazing things in the world. Many of them, such as Mahatma Gandhi, have failed. Or Steve Jobs that I brought up earlier. Gandhi was originally an attorney, and he was basically kicked out of India because he was not a very successful attorney, right? And he came back and was able to impact some of the largest social changes that have ever happened in history. Right? Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. And after a short time period, came back and made a huge difference for that company and made it so that they were the most profitable company of their time in history. Far larger profits than anybody else that had ever compared to what they had done in particular. These are incredible things that can be accomplished, and this is a stage to do so. By the time we're done, you will have been recognized by governments, by universities, by communities, and can continue to be recognized well into the future. So let's do something amazing. So how do we actually get in and do it? Because one of the difficulties that may not be an excuse is really understanding how we can achieve something great, or how we can focus on something that's actually going to make a difference. If we all look at transportation, we might see something amazing, but we might not. Okay? If we all look at the exact same problem, the exact same hypothesis, and we're not working together, it may not be all that valuable. Right? So let's look at the overall and maybe start brainstorming a little bit about some things that we can try to accomplish as teams and as different groups. Some people already have some really amazing ideas, but maybe we can build on those a little bit as well. So we've broken out the causes and the effects behind air quality so that you have something to kind of focus in on, right? But one thing that I would say is that researchers in the past have been able to focus on very, very specific areas, like I've mentioned in some other meetings here. I actually think our opportunity is in the chance to look at something much bigger. or to do something that affects a much wider area rather than a very narrow focus. Very narrow focuses often take a long time to be able to see something new or to be able to determine exactly how that particular thing works. But if instead of looking at just how inversion is, or just transportation, you can start looking at how the two correlate together and how that affects our health and how that affects the way the economy works and how that changes, all of these different things in our lives. And then you throw in all of the other factors, the causes of air quality. Now you might see something much bigger, right? What are some of the thoughts that you guys have on things that you want to accomplish or that you're hoping you may be able to see from this air quality competition? Anybody willing to share? Rob?
I'm thinking that it would be really good if we could come up with sort of things that anybody can do. Yeah. Actionable items.
Yeah.
That you come away feeling motivated to do the thing you can do.
Yeah.
Right? And what the impact of that's going to be. Because some people can make a bigger impact given their life circumstances than others, given where our infrastructure is and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Where people are at financially or anything else, right? So I would love to see somebody talk about something that, look, I don't have to change who I am in order to make a difference with air quality, right? I can just continue to do the things that I do, but I can make a difference, right? Years ago, so right now we have the smoking campaigns, right? And they're very impactful and they change a lot of things and they cause a lot of people to quit smoking. At least they were for a while there, right? Years ago, though, we had the Your Brain on Drugs advertisements. How many people remember those ads, right? And they'd put that egg right on the pan and it'd sizzle and you'd go, okay, I don't want my brain to look like that, right? Just a simple thing where somebody came up with a message that changed the world in drugs. Maybe it's gone back or maybe it's done other things since, but for a long time, that influenced generations, right? Maybe just a simple explanation of, look, stop using your laundry at these hours, or stop whatever, like just simple changes in our lives. If enough of us do it, and we've got a couple million people here in Utah, maybe that makes the difference, right? Or maybe there's little things that each of us can contribute that all build on each other. But think through, how do you then take that thought of let's do something actionable as individuals and start actually drilling down to what is it that needs to be done from an actionable perspective, right? What is it that each individual can do, and what are some of the things that are going to keep them from doing it? Right? Flesh out the idea a bit more. Other thoughts?
I think it would be interesting to actually see the dynamics, if we can reconstruct the dynamics of the bad air quality during an inversion, given the fact that inversions are kind of a fixed theme here. Yeah. See where the switching points are. What are the conditions where all of a sudden this goes from being mild to dangerous along the way, what the reactions are.
Yeah.
So that we know the various elements and can begin to address those root causes.
Yeah, so I really like that. Or you can also talk about the same idea and say, just to be able to predict it a little bit better and know this is when red air quality is coming, right? Now, I know there's a ton of research being done on that particular piece. We can build on exactly what you're talking about and start seeing more like, at what point should we stop allowing people to go outside? At what point do we need to do something more than say, let's all carpool, right? At what point does it get to be something that we need to do something to change our actions that is actually something that might change what we would normally do, but it's worth making that change so that we don't die earlier, right? I saw a thing this morning from one of the teams. They've got this really cool video that's already built. They've done all sorts of things already at this point. And that video shows that just air quality in an average state does something like 9 cigarettes. You smoke the full cigarettes during that time period. It might be even more impactful, right? Like there might be much worse things. Like when we get into inversion, I'll bet you're smoking a cigarette that particular day, right? So other questions, thoughts?
So the other thing that could be done, building off of what she said, and also what you mentioned. See, right now there is, let's look at individual behavior, right? Because if individuals don't start taking responsibility and behave more responsibly, nothing is going to change.
Yeah.
Everything will just continue the way it is, right? To make matters simple.
Yeah.
So I have to make a decision every day morning. Do I drive to work or do I carpool?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How do I make that decision? I can't, because I don't know what air quality on that day is likely to be, and whether I have the opportunity to carpool. Can there not be an application that kind of starts predicting that for the next 3 days, the inversion is going to be really bad, and there is a group of people to whom a message goes out saying that, look, we are going to try to carpool these days. Whoever wants to sign up, just click here, one click, and you become the driver for that day, and then the next day somebody else can click. Just imagine how much more power would people have if they are given the tools and make it easy for them to behave differently. Make it easy is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that?
Right.
And yet today we don't have the mechanism to do it. I see billboards of ozone whatever day. That's too late. I'm already on the road and so are other people. Why didn't you tell me yesterday? Right. Yesterday night I could have talked to some people or done some clicks and had a meaningful solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why can't we do that?
Yeah, I have no idea why not, right? And I mean, look at all of the horrible social sites I really don't like Facebook, right? Imagine flash mobs. How does a flash mob get organized? Because they have tools that make that easier to do so. They have texting, they have their Facebook pages, they have whatever else, right? Why not create a flash mob of people that are carpooling? Or why not, I like how you started that out where you said individual responsibility, right?
We all need to do that.
Yeah. I don't want to go in and tell everybody in the world, look, you have to carpool. I don't want to say, look, you have to change who you are as an individual. But if we can start helping people understand their responsibility and what it is that they're doing that is making an impact, and we start really getting it, and then we have an easy way to make the changes that we're personally willing to make, now we affect social change.
Exactly. Make it easy, empower them to make the decision, and then it is up to them. They may choose not to participate in that. That's a different matter.
Yeah.
But at least they have the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so I think that's excellent. And we may not be the ones that create the social app itself, right? We may not be the ones who dial it down and say, look, this is how you predict when it's going to be a red air day. But if we can put some of the tools in place to make that happen, that's a valuable solution. If somebody can show some visualizations of what exactly the air is going to look like over the next week and how gross it is, that's a valuable solution. If somebody, a couple people have talked about data lakes or automating data science. If you could go in and create a huge data lake that just allowed people to start putting in things related to a particular social issue, and now they can start saying, hey, this is really, Pam talked to me quite a bit about this, right? And Matt Davies has been talking about it, but hey, let's all look at that data, and now those who really care about that particular piece can find the information they need to know what it is that we're doing to ourselves. On the way in, this is often my story now, but I was listening to NPR. That's, just so you know, that's what I do all day, every day, every time I'm driving somewhere. But I was listening, and they were talking about animals and behavior and what we do with animals and everything else, right? And if you look at the areas where humans have caused extinction, and have done so in a fairly willful manner, they understood that they were doing it and they were killing out a particular species or whatever else, every single time humans have then become nasty was the word they used. So one of the large extinctions happened in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And then we spun out and we had World War I and we had World War II and we had all of these things. Humans lose their humility when we stop caring about how we're affecting other things. Animals, the world, each other. And if I can't be humble enough to say that me choosing to drive today might cause somebody to lose their child, I need to figure out who I am and decide if it's worth me changing that one simple thing. And if I can have an easier way to do it, maybe now I can make a big difference in somebody else's life. Right? No, that's okay. So, I think there's a lot of other things that we can do as well, like create apps that allow you to see what the air is like right this second, or what the air is like in your particular city. Maybe we can create something that starts showing how certain carcinogens are going to affect you and when they're going to affect you in your life. Maybe we can look at, outside of like the health piece, maybe we can start looking at the economic factors and start understanding, is there a chance that we're going to lose Sundance because of the bad air? If we lost the Sundance Film Festival because of the horrible air in the wintertime, can you imagine the impact on the state and on all of our lives? Right? If you can predict out that that might happen in the future, you might help people make change. Right? So help them understand how they can be motivated. Help researchers figure out how they can learn something new. Or maybe discover a question that hasn't been answered before, and all you do is provide that question to them. Look, I've looked at all of the research out there in the world, and I know that nobody has looked at exactly how bacon grease affects the air, right? We all love bacon, but this fad of bacon has actually caused many people to whatever, right? I apologize, I love bacon. I'll backtrack on that entire conversation. But there's more to what is the simple goal, or what is something that I can kind of think up really quickly and say, hey, I'd like to look at how transportation on a particular day is affecting our air. That's great, but what is the actual impact, or how does it make a difference, right? And that's something to build a team on. How do I take whatever it is that I can know and understand, whatever insights I find, whatever correlations may or may not be there, and how do I start understanding how that affects people's lives? How it affects my life? If it's going to knock 5 years off of my kids' lives, I want to get rid of it. If it's going to change the way that they grow up, I want to do something about that. And if it's something simple, or if it's something that we've made easy, people will do it if they understand what the impacts are and how to make a difference. When I started this, my wife had talked about this for years, but I really never thought, oh, how am I really impacting this? What is this actually doing to me and those around me? It's very difficult to start internalizing that and start saying, what is this air actually doing to me and to those I love? But once you're willing to take some of those steps, now you can start seeing, okay, look, I'm okay to start asking other people to make a change. I'm no longer going to fear that. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be a crusader for this. I don't like the crusade thing, but it's a good word. And I'm going to go and I'm going to do something impactful. Right? Maybe make an easier way to spread the word on Facebook, or whatever. I don't know, to bring this back into people's minds again. Find the thing that you want to focus on that motivates you, and then create a team around it. Did we want to talk about, on the rules? The rules are posted. I'm not going to cover all of this stuff. We're just going to flip through here real quick, get to the rules so that I have it in front of everybody, but let's accomplish something amazing. Let's talk about teams themselves. Right now, I would imagine, and I want to hear other people bring up what you would think would be a good idea as well, but I would imagine that a really good, solid team is going to have a data scientist of some sort, right? Somebody that can look at the data and start seeing correlations and understanding how things relate. Maybe they can do some machine learning or some automation to try to make that happen quicker and faster than has ever been done before. I would imagine you might need a couple of those, okay? And maybe ones with different types of skill sets, like ones that can do some project management, ones that can help you visualize that data, or can help you turn that into a really good message. I would also imagine that you're going to need somebody that can help you get through all of the data, whether they're a database person or they're an analyst, or there's somebody that has a skill set specific to the size of the data and the complexity of that data. Okay? You're going to need somebody that can help you present by the time you're done, right? You're also going to need somebody, maybe an executive or a manager or a project manager, somebody that can help you determine what it is that, and help you all brainstorm together, but determine what it is that you want to accomplish and all of the steps that it's going to take to get there, right? We've asked for charters next week. It's going to be really difficult to produce those by Tuesday, right? Especially if you don't already have a team. So build your teams now. Brad did a great job building a website with a purpose, with an objective that they want to accomplish, and a way to easily go in and say, yeah, I want to be part of this team. It was brilliant. He's taken that a step further, and he's used Trello boards to start making a place where he can just put people in and start assigning tasks, right? Brad, did you want to mention anything about that, or maybe tell me more about what your thoughts were?
So probably like most of you guys just trying to figure out what team we're going to work on and stuff, right? Oh, come in.
Yeah, if you want to come up real quick, might be hard to hear for those on the online.
Yeah, sure.
Plus, it'll be recorded.
Okay, this is better. I have a quiet voice.
Yeah.
So I'm probably like a lot of you that was just trying to figure out what to do as far as the team and stuff goes, and didn't really see anything forming. So one of the data sets that I prepared for the competition here, I went through and learned how to scrub it and clean it and submit it, had to deal with weather balloon data and elevation, which got me reading more about the inversions and what happens in the upper layers of the atmosphere and so forth. So I thought, well, maybe that'd be a good thing to form a team around. And as I looked into it more, I found out that in Utah, at least, that the winter inversions are when the concentrations are absolutely the highest. No big surprise, right? But it's when a lot of the health concerns happen at the same time because those concentrations are so high. And so the thought is maybe we can look at what are the root causes of an inversion. What has to be in place? I'm an IT manager, right? So we do root cause analysis on IT. Why did that server crash or whatever? And we break it down into the elements of what has to be present in order for that server to have crashed. This particular thing had to happen, or this thing had to happen, or whatever. And then we look at how to mitigate those or eliminate them. And so I thought maybe that would be a fun thing to do with inversions and learn more about that. And then see, does the data support what the experts believe are the root causes? So talk to an expert, get those root causes, and then run the data against it and say, well, if this is true, then we should see data that looks like this. And do we? Or do we see something new that we haven't seen before, that, hey, there's this other element out here that appears to coincide with these inversions that's not on our list. Why is that? And stuff. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And I'm not a data scientist, but I help organize teams and bring them together. So some of the tools that Nick's talking about, I sent out an email yesterday. I don't know the right channels. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but sent out an email and said, hey, if you're interested, come to this site. It was just a Google Swarm site. You can go there, and it tells a little bit about what the scope of the team is, and if you're interested, here's how you can help contribute. Nick brought up the point of a Trello site, and I'd never heard of Trello before. So I went on there this morning and whipped something up and put it together and drove it to, is this on the...
Would you be able to make it to Trello for everything?
Maybe I can show you at least what we put together on it.
I use Trello all the time.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I introduced you to that and totally rocks for all this stuff. So.
The other nice thing about Trello, too, is if you really want to have some fun with it, what is the name of the board?
Win version.
It might not be shared to you or something like that.
This is public. There's the URL for it. So, but on Trello, it's just basically a quick site to bring up and collaborate. Never used it before. Got on there in about an hour, had something put together. So I thought it was a.
YouTube,
We don't have a YouTube video done yet. You say some another team already does?
No, it started. Yeah, but it started. They started doing it a little bit. So I really like underneath there too. He's talking about something where it's a skill set he already has. That Brad already uses this, right? And he's just implementing that into the competition. Use your strengths and your weaknesses to be successful. There's something wrong here, it says.
Let's see, it's one.
Well, while they're grabbing that, I'd like to kind of flesh out some of that idea too. So if you're starting to look at inversions and what actually affects them and everything else, it might make it much easier to predict when they're coming up, just like we were just talking about, right? Or in addition to predicting, maybe you can start helping people prepare for an inversion because all of these factors are starting to get into play, right? We've all heard enough on the news now that we start going, oh, you know what? There isn't a storm coming up anytime soon. There's probably going to be some inversion. The air is going to get worse and worse, right? But it'd be really great if we all knew, oh, you know what?
Yeah.
It is definitely starting to build out there. I'm going to start carpooling more or whatever.
So this is all we did here. We just said, what about us? What is the team, what are their goals and areas of exploration possible that's over there? Reference documents, we started pulling in some reference documents that talk about inversions. And this one here from Dr. Whiteman, if you...
Yeah, this is the one that we mentioned.
Yeah, this is really good stuff. I'm just going to click on this and bring it up here. I want to show you one thing in here that I thought was fascinating. It's actually a pretty good read, a little bit scientific-y, okay, if that's a word, but it's right on point. It's really new data, and it's using the same data that we're describing. This I thought was a really interesting graph, okay? So that dashed line across this graph there is, they call it, what's called the inversion threshold, for the sake of this discussion. But what Dr. Whiteman says is that if that black line that's going up and down, that's the level of inversionness, okay, unscientific term. If that crosses that threshold, then you hit a critical mass and it will continue to grow. Turns out inversions happen every day, even in the summer, every night, and stuff like that. But the sun just cooks them away and they're gone, right? So certain things have to be in place. When that happens and it starts crossing that threshold, it'll just grow and grow. And if you see the red line and the blue line, that's the PM 2.5s and the PM 10s. They just start growing and growing and growing until it ends, which I thought was kind of interesting, right? Yeah. So he's done a lot of this research on it. One of our first rules is that I want to, if someone's on the team or Dr. Matt or something, get him to come talk to the team and say, look, here's what we believe the root causes are of inversions around these things here. You got to have a full floor and high pressure above it, and whatever they may be. Then we can say, okay, great, let's run that against the data and see what happens. So anyway.
What you might also find is not only things that are known, but things that aren't known yet, right?
Yes.
So I talked about Kennecott and how they have a mini inversion inside of Kennecott itself, right?
Oh, yeah.
Matt talked a while ago about how we don't have a way to see what all of the layers of the inversion are, because you can't get sensors all the way up and down every mountain around the state. But maybe we could put some in Kennecott inside that hole and start understanding exactly how those different inversion layers go, right? That's a potential project that somebody could work on for this competition.
I was going to say another great thing about this too, Brad, that you've done is that Trello boards can be copied. I've actually been planning on using mine that I use to plan events to copy out to other groups in the area as well, for other events they do in the future. So it would be a good idea if you've done some of this right now, leave it in that state and hit copy it off to a blank template, and then you can hand it out to other people in the future. If they create a Trello account, you can copy it to another Trello user.
Okay, great.
So it's a great way to start a template that could be kept sharing across the other teams.
Okay. Okay, cool. And this is, if you're interested in joining the team, we do have a join up link here. I did send that out yesterday, but it's basically just a Google form here. It talks about the team and, what some of our immediate needs are, and they can just join here and okay? Okay.
Do we have anything else?
Thank you all for coming out. There are many people here in this room that still don't have a team, right? So please talk amongst yourselves. Come out of that shell a little bit and say, hey, I really want to join a team. Hopefully you don't all just join Brad's team right away. But anyway, but hopefully you do. Maybe that's a really great thing. And we don't have a That's actually the team out of Michigan that I've mentioned before. That's out of state, or one of the ones that's out of state. And they sent me a bunch of stuff today. So.
Now, to give background, they've kind of been working in air quality for other states as well. In other words, So that's how some of that is already there and in place and stuff like that. I don't think anybody from here will necessarily be joining their team.
No, but we do have other people that have already done a lot of things, like John St. John and others that have already been involved in this. And so you can take a lot of the work that they've done in particular and try to get those people on your team. But also, and I hope that's a helpful pitch there, John, whenever, if you ever hear this. But also, again, we have access to air quality experts, to all sorts of data and information that's already been done. So use those things as steps to help yourself get to what you're trying to accomplish quickly so that you can either decide that's the right path or continue on to something that might be even better for you. Right? This weekend, I'm going to try to look at everybody on the meetups, on the UHUG Google group, all of those things, and I'm going to try and start just building teams. Please join teams on your own and let me know and Pat know through those forums that you are building those teams and you're involved already. But I'm going to start just assigning people, whether you like it or not. Because I do want everybody here to be successful, and I don't want to do that in an arbitrary way. And so I'm going to try to do it based off of skill sets that you've described about yourself already, or things that I can find out about you. This is going to be a lot of work. So please help me decrease that by filling out that form and creating your teams and everything else as well.
Right. And I'm going to start taking that form. When you fill out that form to say who you are, I'm going to post it to the Google groups and say this person's looking.
So if we are already in the team, then we can write down that in the form?
Yep.
Yeah, the form says team name. If you're looking, you write looking. If you're in a team, you write whatever the name of the team is. And whether that's Winversion or that's just Team Brad or whatever, as long as everybody gets the same thing, we're going to know what the team is.
And mine will be kind of suggestions. So if I take somebody from a team who's already on a team, you can tell me, hey, you're crazy, I'm taking care of it.
Yeah.
Rob?
But sort of along those lines, I mean, it's like I've just been coming for like a month now, just getting used to the dynamics. And it seems like there's some people who already have a lot of experience in data science and they already know each other pretty well.
Yep.
They're naturally going to form a team. But one thought is maybe you could seed teams. Because the people who know the most are most likely to just naturally work together.
Yeah.
You might reach out and suggest that they could help seed teams.
Yeah, so we've actually told them
We've done that.
Yeah, that they need to break up, and then we told them that they could compete together, and then they decided that they want to break up into other groups. So, so yes, so they're out there. You might have noticed a couple of them there yesterday that didn't. For anybody that came out to the Adobe lunch, that didn't raise their hands to say they were in a team, and that's why, because they all want to build another team or be involved in other teams. So we will have data scientists to go around a little bit as well.
No questions. And do you have any other teams already formed? How do we know what other teams are out there?
Yeah, so a couple like Brad have actually posted something out there, plus those who have filled out the form will announce those, or we'll put them up and make them available, but
yeah, I'm going to spend a lot of the weekend posting to the Google groups what's been submitted in. So if you see two team names that are the same, essentially that's somebody creating a team, and those will be the teams. But if I see that myself, I'm going to email those people and I'm going to say, can you please post to the Google group that you formed a team or you're starting to form a team, post who you are and what you're doing. Doesn't have to be as elaborate as the form and everything that Brad set up. Just as long as you say, I'm a team, here's what I am, and here's what I'm doing.
So although I was trying to narrow down, okay, each team is probably going to need this, and each team is probably going to need that. In the long run, I think any skill set can be valuable for this competition. Doesn't matter if you're a C# developer, if you've worked with Java or PHP, or if you haven't developed at all, if you're a QA engineer, it doesn't matter. In the long run, you can be helpful.
So are you any separate list for individuals who are looking for teams, mentioning what their strengths are, so teams who have already been formed, they can grab this.
Can pick that person up, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That form has a simple spot to put in those skills. I'm looking for my form.
Yeah, so you can put in your skills, and then there's one of the places you can put looking for a team, and then we'll post that as, hey, this is an individual that's looking for a team. These are their skill sets. That's how I'm going to try, or part of how I'm going to try and create teams over the weekend as well, right?
Yeah. So I can't even find my own form. It's on the new site.
This is why we're trying to get it on the site, and it should be there soon, hopefully.
And if not, I'm going to send it out in a newsletter tonight, but it's on a, here it is.
So I know this group is fairly motivated. You guys have been coming out. Thank you, Dave. You guys have been out here to the meetings. You've been involved. You're trying to do things. You're creating ideas for us, everything else, right? That's great. Help us motivate others, right? There's a lot of people on that, just on that meetup. If we got 230 people to compete, we're going to do something awesome, right? So help us motivate them. This can't be on Pat and I. We want somebody in this group or several somebodies to stand out for what you've done as a leader in the community more than just, what we're trying to do, right? Stand out, make a difference with the community as well as with the entire competition.
When should each team start working?
Now. So teams can start as of a couple days ago.
Wednesday. Before that.
And then, so they should start now. We need charters by Tuesday the 26th.
26th.
All of that stuff is up on the rules and everything else that's up there.
On the sheet of paper.
The Prezi on that sheet as well, if you want to grab a sheet up here. And then it'll kind of build up as we go.
One thing I noticed when I was putting together that Trello site, there's a calendar on our site that shows dates.
Yeah.
It was like not that much time.
No.
Between now.
No, there's nothing. There's very, very little time.
Won't wait around.
Yeah, don't wait around. And again, if you have to motivate people, Nick talked about a lot of the great motivations too. Some people are purely motivated by fame and by money and things like that, and that's all going to come out of this competition. I mean, Dave Fletcher, CTO of the state of Utah, we have his ear, we're going to have the governor's ear. There's going to be a lot of press and stuff around this. So if you got to motivate somebody, say, look, if you really want to be in the limelight, this is your chance. And you don't have to be a Kim Kardashian or something else or some sort of public figure. You don't have to do something crazy, dump ice on your head or something like that. You just have to work. And you come on. So
it's pretty cool.
Yep.
Last thing, there is tonight on NPR, speaking of NPR, at 6:30, there's something called Marketplace. And tonight they're focusing on data scientists and how they're just now realizing that they can do something for social good.
Oh.
Kind of an interesting subject.
Yeah.
We may want to look up. They do podcasts and whatever else, so that you can listen to it later too if you want. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you guys.
Pam?
Yes.
I had a question for you really quick. Let me stop this.